What's going on, people? Welcome to episode 29 of the Hip Hop Orchestra Presents. I'm joined by a really good friend of mine, someone incredibly inspirational. She's the founder of YP Collective and soon-to-be Creator Labs, Louise Bromby. How are you?
Hello.
Yeah.
Soon to be Career Labs.
Oh, sorry, my fault. Career Labs, my bad. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm very hot today. I think, was it 36 degrees?
Tell me, I think so. So. It's mad, ain't it?
Yeah. It's desperately attempting to look chilled and cool as a cucumber.
You look fine. You look good. How was your day there today?
It's been really nice, actually. It's a Good Friday. Just thinking a lot about the things that are coming up for us with the company, and thinking about exciting content, and I'm doing a lot of making at the moment. I think that's really nice. We've gone through, I think people are calling this phase the big pause, aren't they? Or the great pause.
Yeah.
And I'm using that time to just really take stock and think about, what do I want to make next? So, yeah.
You know, because we had a really good talk before this, didn't we? Before the whole podcast, and what you'd be obviously working on towards the future is obviously incredible, and I found it really inspirational. And I forgot to ask, actually, have you been working from home this whole time, or have you still been going in?
I work from home anyway, so it hasn't really changed for me that much, apart from all of a sudden there are a load more people in the house.
Yeah.
So I kind of liked it though, because it was like, everyone would leave, I'd get up, I'd sort of potter about, I'd do my thing, I'd have my routine, I'd go to my office space, do my work, and then sort of as it gets to the end of the day, people would start coming in and I'd start getting my human interaction. If I didn't have meetings, but, all of a sudden all those people were in all day. And so there was sort of a sudden influx of bods in the house.
Yeah.
And that actually was the change for me. I'm super comfortable working from home and working remotely. I prefer the term working remotely, actually, because I think there's still a bit of connotation around working from home that you're just sat in your pajamas.
Yeah.
And, that might be for some people. And obviously there's a lot of like branding out there for loungewear and getting comfy. But for me, I amped it up. And I really started the day with like, what outfit can I wear that I might even have felt maybe not confident enough to step outside in, but it doesn't matter because no one's going to see me. So I just got some ridiculous stuff. And now I think it's really given me the confidence to step outside. And I think there's been a lot of that over the last few months.
There is, like, and I so good that you love working from home, like remotely as well. And I know obviously a lot of people are getting sick of Zoom now, aren't they? Are you one of them, or are you out with it still?
Do you know what it is? I think we've made the assumption that Zoom calls and video chats are somehow maybe easier than being in the room, but I think we've really come to realize it's a lot harder. It's like when you try and have a phone call, or you're trying to explain something, on WhatsApp. There's so much more to communication than through text. There's so much more communication than through a screen. Yeah. I mean, you're hearing my my noise in the background, but also, the fact that you've got the setting and actually being always on, because I made this joke the other day, and it's not really probably what I would do, but I feel like Botox is going to shoot through the roof, because how long have we got to sit looking at my own face?
Yeah.
Going, oh, okay.
I'm getting Botox in a few weeks, actually.
And that's not normal. That's fatiguing, having to constantly be like, oh, am I, is this, have I got, there's that bit of hair? And actually, when we're in the room, we don't care, do we? So
no.
I can understand that, but also, again, I'm a bit used to it, really. So
good.
Yeah.
Good. You know what? We actually mentioned the YP Collective soon to be Career Lab. Yeah, so you got it right. I'm so sorry, my brain's fried. But let's talk about how you got started. So what is YP Collective? How did it all start?
So YP Collective started as a bit of a call to arms. Sick and tired of listening to negative portrayal of young people in the media, on social media, in the news. Just, sly digs and actually full-on outrageous ones as well. I think it was on my way to work once, and I saw a headline in some tatty newspaper that I shan't mention, but rhymes with Ailey fail. And it was something like, young people don't have any manners. And I was like, oh God, is there nothing else in the world going on? And at the time it was, credit crunch and high rates of youth unemployment. And I was thinking, what is this psychologically doing to people, to create these blockers of who they are innately, and broadcast this out to allow people to feel like they can leap over these hurdles, that they're not just intrinsically crap. And I thought, it's enough. It's actually wrong as well, not just ethically, I believe, but just factually. I knew enough people who were under 25 who were killing it, who are so talented and doing amazing things that half the people double their age wouldn't even have the balls to do. And so I thought, YP stands for actually hashtag young and proud. So that was the hashtag we used on social media as a shout out. Tell us why you're hashtag young and proud. And I wanted it in 60 seconds, and I wanted it to come from them, and for them as a practice to say themselves why they should be and why they are, almost as a kind of affirmation. And then share it. So I started collecting these videos. And it kind of took us on a bit of a journey. The whole youth unemployment thing became just crazy. At one point, we were over 1 million 16 to 25s not in education, employment, or training, and it became very much geared around, this ensuring companies actually have this ability and know how to take responsibility to notice the talent that is around them and get these people into their buildings, talking about diversity, talking about, entry-level talent. Well, actually put your words into action and hire these people, because they're not hard to find, actually. I have a similar thing at the moment where there's talking about a lot of skills gaps in young people. I don't know what language you're allowed to use. Maybe you can put emoji over it, but it's fine.
Yeah.
There are no skills gap in young people.
Of course
I
not.
There are none. I know people who are half my age, who can code, who can design websites, who can create motion design that looks like a Jaguar advert, who are, trading Forex because they've taught themselves, who are running businesses. Like, tell me where this skills gap is. I think the gap is not skills, it's noticing,
of course,
and looking and seeing. So, long story short, we did all of this around youth employment and this transition from learning to earning. Fascinated by it, the cultural shift from education into the workforce. And then suddenly I started noticing, actually, that's not the only transition. There are so many transitions in life, and they are so societally part of why we feel triggered that we've failed. And actually, they are moments of growth. It's just uncomfortable in the middle when you go, oh, I'm not happy here, so I want to be there. Or I'm not here, I'm not there, so how do I get there? Or I want to make a decision in my life that changes my lifestyle. There are so many moments, and the fascination I have is how many are there and why, and what do they look like? So we've moved, really. That was the original. It was about youth employment. But we're broadening that now, and I shall stop talking for a moment because I just get a bit excited.
That's what I love, though, because I love talking to people such as yourself who are so passionate and get excited to talk about what they're working on. And it's like you go back to what you said earlier about the 16 to 25-year-olds who are so amazing at what they do. And we've known each other for years, haven't we, since the Somewhere 2 days. Yeah. And like you said, I've worked alongside these people, and what they do is so incredible. And obviously what you're doing is incredible also. I've got to say on our podcast, thank you for doing such an amazing thing for everyone. Thank you. And
it was an easy job. That's not a difficult job, to find incredible young people doing incredible things. Yeah. You're a classic example of this. You've taken something that is, for many people quite, a mystifying thing, and you demystified it. You've taken orchestral music and translated it through into, the current sounds we hear. But people have done that throughout centuries in music and in all sorts of other topics, but you took hold at such a young age as well, you know, and we've grown since then, and you're still doing it, and you're still the tenacity in creating something that translates and speaks to wider audiences is brilliant. I mean, there were so many young people when I worked at Somewhere Too, which was such a great initiative. It was really fun, and I always sat in the office kind of doing all of the marketing and the event stuff and thinking, I want to go out there and stuff on my laptop, you know, missing the excitement. I'd hear about all these things, and I know there's some people who, you know, I know Pip and Nut, from my understanding, had a lot of dealings with Somewhere Too, and how amazing, I've got their nut butter in my cupboard.
How mad is that?
Yeah, it's so cool.
It's mad, isn't it? When you see like people just grow so much, and you know you got their products in your house now, it's mad. It really is, because I can't.
Fame.
Yeah, because I'm so proud of seeing people like grow so quickly as well, going from taking an idea, and then taking it to that next level. And it makes me really proud, like a father figure, to say like they had like an idea, they've actually worked on it, had that tenacity, like you said, to actually take it from an idea to this physical form, and to see it grow over the years. It's just an amazing thing, isn't it?
Oh, massively. And it's not easy either. Like the last 10 years, and not even considering what we're in now, but just the last 10 years, our scrabble out of the credit crunch. And I wrote an article at the beginning of the year about this thing I coined of the missing millennial, of this, I don't know how much of the population, because I'm not in charge of the data and didn't quite have the time to start, you know, shuffling through the amount of it. But I bet you somebody with more skills than I and a bit more time would be able to tell you the exact figure of how many young people are there who, you know, entered the workforce when it got napalmed and it was a flattened wasteland / jungle of people scrabbling for any job across the world. And you know, we're looking at levels of unemployment that are a lot more than what we experienced 10 years ago. What kind of generation are we going to not be able to see as well? That we're going to have to find different lenses to discover, to notice them, because they're not going to turn up in the way that you would expect. They're not going to present themselves in the skill sets and I'm in inner city London.
It's fine.
But they're not going to present themselves in the way that we expect talent to present themselves anymore. And when last time we had that level of unemployment, particularly around young people, we had a 70% spike in youth startups.
Wow.
Young people starting their businesses. Why? The obvious answer would be that they gave themselves a job, right? That's fair. But also, these are now people who are potentially the ones who are going to try and have to ride the wave this time around with a new set of people who will be mirroring them in the same situation. Only this is a really weird ball game now with COVID.
It's
going to be a funny time.
It is. Because I want to ask how, obviously, it might be a stupid question, but how has it kind of affected you and what you're trying to do with YP and on to Career Lab as well? Not just the pandemic, but maybe beforehand as well. Has there been like any kind of obvious sort of borders or gates that's trying to stop you from doing what you're trying to do?
There are always things stopping me from doing what I want to do. And I would say at least 50% of it is myself and my getting in my own way. I have to say, running your own gig, running your own business, your project, your organization, whatever it is a really good, I think, you know, it's a schooling in your own self-reflection of things you could be working on. But outside of me, the state of politics at the moment has definitely thrown a few rocks in the road. We had some IR35 stuff, which is tax things to do with self-employment and gig economy peeps, which is predominantly the type of work I do, is very gig economy focused. We're not going to be your full-time member of staff. We're going to be the people who come in and, you know, create really vibrant things, but you can't be that staid, you know, full-timer in that. You don't get that same energy. That's the gig economy. Like, it brings that flourishing energy. But the IR35 thing really dampened our fire a bit at the beginning of the year, made it very difficult. And then COVID came along, and I thought, oh, poo, this is going to be hard. And full disclosure, we were a very small business, so we were really starting to look at how many more months can we survive before we have to kind of maybe put a freeze on everything. And I'd worked out the months, and the month came along, and I won about 4 different types of business, like that. Boom, done. Then just basically had my head down for 3 months across the main 3 months around when we were in full lockdown. So luckily I didn't have anywhere to go anyway, so all I did was work. So COVID worked for me on a work basis, because a lot, like I said, I work remotely as standard. I'm really comfortable with remote and future workforce style methods, and you know, I'm comfortable virtualizing, and that's what I became, a virtualizer. So you live events, you need to change it over to online. Okay, I'm your woman. So
brilliant.
That's what I do a lot now.
Yeah, because I'm glad you said that, because sometimes it has worked in people's favor, hasn't it? That kind of working remotely, and it kind of, in a way, kind of inspires you, doesn't it, to kind of work towards certain different things. And how, like you said, moments where you kind of had, like, you counted the months to potential freezing of the company. How do you kind of overcome these potential sort of scary moments? Do you have like a kind of go-to tactic, or is it just literally just work through it and kind of hope for the best in a way?
I don't think it's either or. And with so much of this, it's never one solution, is it? It's never one easy result or easy answer. I am very used to uncertainty. I'm fairly comfortable with it now. I think that's come with practice. I've been freelance for a long time. So that kind of work style, and the fact that if I've got to go get something, I've got to go get something, is kind of just my mindset now. I think there are some really, really important mindsets to have when it comes to entering uncertainty. And there's a really interesting book that I plan on reading, but I've read enough around it that I'm really excited to read, called Black Swan. And it's basically, a black swan is an unforeseen event. Now, this can come as a sort of sudden, you know, a day catastrophe, a sudden thing. Beirut would be a classic example of that. Some of these things are like, well, COVID, for example. I think this time last year, we probably weren't, you know, most of us weren't expecting it, conspiracy theories aside. But I think if you are waiting for things to be certain to make decisions, you're going to be waiting a long time, because that's not the way the world works. Well, the world works in chaos, and you can find the pretty patterns in that. And I think that's a very fluffy way of saying that there are certain mindsets, attitudes, and methods in being able to combat your initial reaction to chaos and uncertainty. Breathing is just a bottom line one, but also catastrophic thinking of, am I preparing for a what if, or am I preparing for a now? Because some of those things are useful, and that's the question. Is it useful for me to prepare for this what if? I would say buying 100 million toilet rolls probably isn't. Is it useful for me to begin preparing myself, you know, for my inner household life, probably. You know, I think it's hard to pinpoint, and I think it could be an entire podcast to just talk about that. But yeah, and I've gone slightly off on a tangent in trying to explain the explainable, because it's taken me years to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a kind of mentor that you go to help you in times of uncertainty, or have you learned as you went along?
I have probably more mentors than I guess you should.
Yeah.
Some of them know they're mentors, and some of them probably aren't aware. And I like to try and seek out people and try and ascertain what it is about them that I like, that I want to replicate, that I want to try and think about to apply to myself. I have plenty of people, and there are certainly people who know that they are my mentors, and then there are people who, you know, there's a really fab woman called Ebony Allard who talks about things being for a moment, a season, or a lifetime. And I do think that about relationships.
Yeah.
And there are some people who have been incredible mentors, but just almost like a blip. And they've just given me that short, sharp, like vitamin C fizzy tablet kind of thing. And then there's other people who are more like the kind of eat your 5 veg a day. Or who are like long-term lifestyle. I need to kind of build this in. You know, and I would definitely suggest that there are no limits to finding people to learn and be inspired and attempt to replicate and reflect back on yourself. Don't try and be somebody else, but certainly try and be the elements, the little ingredients of other people you see, to try and apply that to yourself. You can easily do that. Our brains are plastic for we are evolving for the reason we can do that. So.
That's brilliant. I love that because I wanted to ask you actually if you like looked up to certain people like as you've come along, and I wanted to like kind of add to that as well and ask if you have any targets that you'd love to achieve with YP, and then on to obviously career goals as well.
Yeah, I have a lot of targets. High achiever, you know.
Yeah, good.
And I think there can be some great things about targets, and then there can be some things that you need to watch yourself if you are maybe a high achiever, that you don't start freezing because you've given yourself so much expectation that you just actually you lose not necessarily the motivation, but the fear sort of extinguishes the motivation. Yeah, I think yeah, I mean, there have been plenty of people in the past and who have inspired me to have and do and consider things for myself that I may not have. I think the raising aspiration piece is always really important. To be able to see for yourself what you see in others has been a massive one, because actually you can see in others what you'd like for yourself. But it's a different thing to see in others what you'd like to see and consider as possible for yourself, because there have been plenty of things in the past for me and still ongoingly that I see and I think I'd love that, that'd be amazing, but I can't have that, you know, and not even for any good reason. So I think before you even set up with goals or ambitions, it's checking in on like I said before, where you might be getting in your own way. Yeah, but for tangible goals, I want to redo the website, going through a rebrand, career labs. Look, there's going to be some courses online I'm writing currently, all around these kinds of slightly intangible qualities that we need to build up if we're going to be resilient for what comes next, short or long term. You know, and I think for me personally, I think when you'll know this, when you have your own thing, you are in that, right?
Yeah.
There has to be some kind of partition, I'd say, but probably one of the movable ones you can put back and forth, not something fixed. But that is always going to be you there too. And I think my goal is to make sure I don't lose myself in the building of this thing, because my fault, challenge, or thing that I would like to work on as a goal is to embed myself more in the future of what my company looks like, and not hide behind the tabs backstage. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. Kind of like I was saying earlier about we spoke before the podcast, and what you have planned for the future is so damn inspirational. It really is. And are you allowed are you allowed to kind of mention what kind of courses you're currently planning at the moment for the future? Yeah.
So there is one, and I have had many. I'm going to go off on a tangent.
Got it.
Might notice. How many of these sort of shower cringe moments? Do you get this?
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem is when you're in the shower, you're alone in your own thoughts, aren't you? And you're sort of walking away, and then you're thinking something, and then you kind of think, usually why? I don't know. I'm sure a psychologist will set me right. But somehow you go into something in your mind and you go, ugh. And you remember something and you go,
That's my life.
Why did I do that? And I've been having many a shower cringe about the title of this course because, you know, I want to be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be strong and clear, and I love a metaphor. I love an analogy. So much of the world is so hard to put into sequential sentences in the construct language that we have. So we do need these things. But this one is pushing me a little bit. So I have a course that's around that initial start to when you start feeling that tension of transition, is maybe the winds of change or whatever you want to call it. You start feeling like this thing of not this, or something's not right. Really, deep human knowledge, not necessarily something that has labels or something kind of cerebrally logical. We often start with that, and then we start labeling and we start categorizing. And it's those moments just as we're starting transition, and I'm doing a particular course that's going to be a bit of a more in-depth one. We'll have lots of little ones that you can do that's maybe an hour, maybe a day or something like that. But this particular one's going to be a bit of a longer course that's about the now, the how, and the wow.
Love it.
It's poising, it's the leaping, and it's the landing. Because those 3 points are your transition, and they are the bits we focus so much on. You know, the wow, this is what I want, or the now, this is what I don't like. And we really struggle with sitting in that discomfort in the middle. And Brené Brown talks about it in her research around boxing training, about being the second round. It's not the first, you've got loads of energy, and it's not the final where you're like home run. It's that middle bit where you're hurt and you're bleeding and you're on the floor and you're like, this is really uncomfortable. And I think I've been fascinated by that, the transition points that we have of, am I going to go and change my career to be a parent? Am I going to switch from being a parent back into workforce? Have I been made redundant or furloughed now? Or these moments where we shift and reevaluate, what is it for me? What's next? And you can't do one without the other two, not effectively. You can't do any one of those. You can't even do two without the other one. And I did a reading actually of a piece by a guy called Paul Ricoeur. I keep saying his name like that. I'm slightly conscious that I might be saying it wrong. But he's a philosopher, and he talks about this 3-stage process of change, of orientation, disorientation, reorientation. And I've just actually today posted it up on social media, on LinkedIn, on our Instagram, and done the reading around what he talks about those 3 stages. And that's exactly what the course is going to be. It's thinking about what we're orientated in, what we want to be reorientated in, and managing through that disorientation as a period of growth, of learning, of resilience, of strengthening, of true adult learning. That's more than just, let's fill a skills gap and learn coding. Not enough. So yeah,
That's brilliant. Because I wanted to ask as well if there's been any kind of particular books or documents or people that you've been able to learn from and kind of implement into your business. And those two are brilliant. And has there been any kind of other things that you've read and think that's really inspiring? I'm going to try and use it in my business. So.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, there are a couple of technologies. There's some technology out there that allows you to read faster, isn't there? Like Blinkist and things like that. And I think I need to get it because at this point the queue of books is just getting ridiculous. I've actually got to do some work. I can't just sit around. But I've propped my laptop up on some of them.
Have you?
Down here. So, the one I'm reading right now is called Untamed by Clennan Doyle. Utterly amazing. And just, talks a lot about the tamed part of ourselves. And she's a female author talking from a female perspective, which is resonating with me. And talking about the decision-making process we take when we're quite indoctrinated from such a young age to the things we should and shouldn't, and how to be a good, X, fill in the blank. I'm also reading How to Fail by Elizabeth Day, which is also great. There's a fantastic chapter in there called How to Fail at Sport, which when I got to it, I thought, this isn't going to apply to me because I don't do sport. I've never done sport. And I thought, I'll read it anyway. Anyway, it's one of the best chapters.
There you go.
Psychologist in there. Sports psychologist talks about the way we tackle tasks and deal with pressure and manage our motivation, which was a little bit sort of what I was referring to back then. But that chapter is the one. Probably going to do a reading on that part in my next video. I'm also reading Women Don't Owe You Pretty by Florence Given, which is hilarious and has an awful lot of brilliant cartoons. She's an artist as well. I have on my list Women Who Run With the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. I have Rising Strong by Brené Brown. What else have I got? I've got a couple of other ones that are actually on my list. Oh, one that everyone should read. And if you don't want to read it, there's a really great Spark Notes link, which maybe I'll send you and you can post somewhere.
Yeah, we'll do.
Is the Zurich Axioms. It's an 80s get-rich-quick book written by some Swiss hedge fund managers. And you can read it like that if you want. But actually, it's 12 axioms. I think it's 12 or it might be 11. That are like how to manage risk and reward. So good.
Really?
Read it and read it through the lens of how you manage your risks and rewards in your decision making, whether that's, am I going to go for this business loan, whether it's, am I going to post this video of my face, oh God, or am I, any decision where you're looking at, am I leveraging myself, oh, this is scary. That's a really good one. Or you can read it whether you're going to do it for your investments, but I didn't do that. I read it through that lens. Finally, I want to read Black Swan, and I read, like I said, enough around it to know that it's something I think would be, I'm all about the interdisciplinary learning.
Yeah, me too.
From all sorts.
Yeah.
So.
What do you think about things like Audible and listen to books as opposed to actually reading them? Do you do that as well, or just do you prefer to read?
Who's got the time?
I know.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, you have to do what you need to do. I don't think there's anything wrong with Audible, especially because I think almost certainly dyslexic. So sometimes reading is quite an effort. Also, like I said, we've got lots of things to do in our time. Like, who are these people who are reading all these books? Like, are they actually in? And I think they all just like read the front cover and then do the Spark Notes. Lovely book. Of course you did. Audible's great. I want Blinkist. I want to be able to read faster. And I think it's really nice when people share pages out of things. Because sometimes it's those little moments that can really speak to you. And there's been a few people who've done that to me recently, and it's just been so good. So we should be up a lot more.
That's brilliant. And how does Blinkist actually work? Does it like teach like different techniques or?
No idea. I think it's something around, they've done some research in how many words you can take in at a time. So it's the idea that every time you blink, you've got 3 more words, 3 more words, 3 more words.
Oh.
I don't know if that's just reading.
Mm-hmm.
It's just coming up on the screen in a different way. I'm sure there's science behind it.
Fair
Anything
enough.
to get through some of these books faster, though, would be great. Because some of them have been sat on my shelf for like embarrassing amount of time.
It's fine because I'm obsessed with books as well. I love to read, and like you said, I love to learn from like different multidisciplinary fields. And one thing I've been obsessed with, I know it might sound a bit weird, but I'm obsessed with the brain and the human body, and I've always been like really fascinated about how the brain works, basically how the body works, and how everyone is so different from each other. And how we all work in different ways. And that's what I'm really fascinated about. But
what have you been reading then around that?
So I'm actually reading a brand new book actually called The Brain Simplified, I think it's called, but it's a really good book by a doctor. But I'm reading like literally, I'm reading all kinds of books about the brain. I'm going to send it to you after actually.
Yeah.
But it really gets into it. And obviously I'm obsessed with podcasts, like I said before this. And there's a couple of doctors on the Joe Rogan podcast, which I'm going to recommend to you highly because I love it when someone can take something so complicated and simplify the hell out of it, thinking, oh, that's what you mean. Wow. Yeah. And then make you want to listen. There's one I'm listening to now, or I listened to last week called Andrew Huberman on Joe Rogan. He's a neuroscientist and he talked about all that kind of stuff. But how he explains things is so simple, but it's so amazing.
Yeah. And I think it's all in the teaching. And it takes somebody to not only be fascinated and obsessed with their topic, but also be able to tell the story of it.
Yeah.
My dad's great at that actually, and he's really into his economics and his history and on all sorts of other things. And he has the ability to tell stories around really complex topics, where all of a sudden I feel like I'm sort of part way to being able to talk myself confidently around it, which is an amazing learning experience. There's a great YouTube channel as well, which at one point they did a series of
bikes.
Everyone needs to ride their bikes today. A series of topics where they got an expert in, and so they got a neuroscientist in to explain certain parts of the brain, but to a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 15-year-old, somebody in university, somebody doing a PhD in it, and then somebody at their level.
Yeah.
And hear it being escalated, the same topic, but being able to be built on in that short space of time was such a great learning experience. I thought, this is brilliant. Imagine doing this for everything.
Yeah, definitely.
But that was a great experience.
It is, because there's this book that I read a while ago. I think it's called The Plastic Brain. You talk about the plastic brain. I think you might have come across it before, where I think he's a brain neuroscientist, neurologist. Sorry, I think he talks about the brain, how it can overcome different scenarios. And like I think it's like 5 different ones. And one of the stories he mentioned was of a doctor whose dad has had a severe stroke, and how he was able to restructure his brain and his dad to be able to walk and talk again. And to me, these sort of things just helps me to inspire like other people, thinking the brain is such an amazing thing that you could do anything. And when people say like, oh, it's too late for me to like learn an instrument or learn a language, obviously it will be hard, obviously, but if you're willing to put that time in and that discipline to learn something brand new, the brain is absolutely incredible. And that's why I'm so...
And we like learning. We are predisposed to want to discover. You know, there's not a single person who, in their best way, and I'm not talking about, you know, people who are struggling in mental health or anything, who aren't in their best form, naturally curious, want to explore, want to discover, and want to adventure.
Yeah.
It's just who we are as a human being, I think.
Of course.
Predisposed to wanting to be our own version of Moana, basically.
Yeah, there we go. I'm glad you said that, because I've always been a very curious person. I always love to learn the next thing. I learn things. I'm like a kind of like a big kid at heart, where I've got to learn about what I'm doing. I get kind of obsessed about it. And for something like you do with YP Collective and soon to be Career Lab, do you feel like curiosity is a big trait that someone needs in order to kind of succeed in life?
Curiosity is fundamental, and it's actually one of the core parts of how we design our curriculum. Curiosity, competence, and confidence. You can't have the three. You can't have one without the other two properly.
Yeah.
You know, you need the competence to be able to do it. You need the confidence to know you can. You need the curiosity to find out what it is you even want to do in the first place. Right?
Yeah, true.
So, you know, it's those three things. I think it's absolutely fundamental. Curiosity can come in all sorts of forms as well. Like, it doesn't need to be this you know, certain way of and I think we like to formalize things a lot. We like to put things into neat little boxes. The way someone is curious in one thing is different to another person. I also think there's something interesting in you know, this childlike mentality. Curiosity is, you see it in children without boundaries, and without shame. And I think with curiosity comes this ability to see mistakes, errors, or, you know, anything in that, failure, whatever you want to call it. You see it differently. And it just becomes a part of a game, a part of a play of, I'm going to try this. Oh, it didn't work. Oh, I'll do it again. I want to climb up this rock. Oh, great. Oh, I just fell over. Oh, it hurt a bit. But actually, if I do it this way, it's just, you know, it's the whole Henry Ford's, I've just found X number of ways that you can't do it as opposed to the way you can.
Yeah.
And I think there's, again, we've formalized that into a nice, neat quote, but really what that looks like is get down in the dirt and make some damn mental mistakes. And who cares? It's not about shame. I do think there's a lot to do with shame in our culture. We like to call out people, you know, and again, it's not binary. It's not like there's no time for that either. There are times where that's needed, but it's not our default. It's not our default to shame someone into not, you know, in not knowing. It's so much more of a kindness to accept when we see a child go wrong, we tell them where to go right. We should continue doing that. Just because we're older doesn't mean that that's not the way we should continue learning.
Because you mentioned, I'm glad you said that as well, about the kind of generation, about this sort of shaming thing now as well. And do you think that kind of affects people's mentality of wanting to start their own business now? They might think it's a crap idea, or I'm too scared to do that. Do you think that kind of affects people, the youth now?
I think there's a lot in needing to feel like you have it all together before you do something. And the best thing I heard when I started the YP Collective, it would be 6 years ago now, was somebody just stood up in a company meeting once, telling their story, and they said, oh, I just decided I'm going to start before I'm ready. Oh shit. Yeah. What am I waiting for? And I realized you need to start before you're ready, because the mistakes need to be made.
You do.
But also you have a lot more in your armory than you think you do. And just start something.
Yeah.
What can you do in the 5 minutes now? And it can be the smallest thing, you know. And another thing that was happening for me at the time was I'd had the previous year to starting the company, I'd had a lump come up in my throat, and I don't know if you can see my scar.
Wow.
Had a lump come up about the size of a golf ball just overnight. What? And I was like, this doesn't seem good. Lumps don't tend to be the happiest of stories. And it took about 7 months of in and out of hospitals, needles, cameras, ultrasounds, you know, to find out that it was a cyst, which is fine, but then they needed to test the cyst, because cysts can be funny. Anyway, long story short, I was very, very lucky that I had this cyst removed. quite intensive surgery. I mean, your throat's a small space, so to have no keyhole available. So it was full kind of sunroof, and it took 18 months to heal.
Wow.
And the several months before of tests and waiting for surgery, etc. Very, in some ways, quite the traumatic experience, very stressful, scary, lots of what ifs. And I finished the year in 2013 thinking, God, I really need to feel like my adrenaline is here for a reason and not because I'm terrified of what if. I need to feel alive, not scared anymore. And, I decided I was going to spend 2014 doing a challenge a day. So I started around October making a list at the end of the year and asking lots of friends and family to offer ideas. And I needed some of these things to be achievable, right? We're not talking, I haven't got the funds or the amount of hours in the day to be going skydiving and wrestling crocodiles every day. But, it needs to be a couple of big, couple of middle size, few little ones, stuff that the idea was that every time I went to bed, I'd done something I hadn't done before, or I'd made myself do something. So I started doing it, started blogging, started vlogging, started doing sort of stuff to kind of say, see, I did do it, got some evidence. And that pushed me along, because by the time it got to April 14th, and one of those challenges was, this company you want to start, register it on Company's House. That's my daily challenge for today. One of them was start the company YouTube channel, do that today. A lot of them was like, go and do a graffiti course, or, a TV presenter course, or skydive, or, bake a loaf of bread, stuff like that as well. But I embedded some stuff to do with things that I wanted as well. And it took the fear away, because as soon as it became like just a daily task, I just got to do this. I don't have to do the whole thing. I don't have to be the next Richard Branson, although I'm not massively keen on being him these days. It just has to be something, and all of a sudden something turns into something else, and it starts to kind of ball up. And by the end of the year, I'd left my job and started it properly. These things start before you're ready. It's such a good one, because our education system indoctrinates us to feel like we have to have the perfect end product before we come up with the answer. And imagine if that's how we did work. Imagine if we never tested and understood how to build a skyscraper, and that we had to come up with this one single solution first and then build it. No, we know how to build the shard, because we've had many, 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 many chances to practice, right?
Yeah, of course. But it's so true what you said, that, because that's how I kind of teach the kids. Obviously, me being a full-time teacher as well, is a lot of kids, especially, they kind of give up before they've even tried, haven't they? And I've always said to them, how many times have you tried? Oh, just the once. Well, there we go. If we tried once, keep it going. And they try it again and again. And then they got it perfect. And you see that they've gone from crying their eyes out to the biggest smile on their face, thinking, there we go. And that's what I said.
See the mess you've made. Look at it.
Yeah.
Work it out. What does that look like? And why does it look like a mess to you? And are there bits in it that look good?
Yeah.
Are there bits in it that actually think, oh, well, I didn't mean to do that? My friend, I'm a musician too. I think we talked about this. I used to play the piano. I could not read music at all. I still can't really.
I still can't.
I'm like, oh, okay, fine, and I learn by ear, so I'm listening out for the things that just drive my piano teachers mad. They were actually refused to play the pieces before I learnt them in the end, because
really,
and then I'd work it out.
You see, that's a talent as well, because obviously you know about the Suzuki method, obviously, and because talking to a good friend of mine on the podcast, Adam, who exact same, as amazing as he is as well, just like yourself, he couldn't read music, but he learned by ear, and he could just pick it up and just play it. I'm very similar as well. That's how I taught myself for doing the grades, and people that's why certain teachers I feel put people off sometimes, where if you don't learn their way, then you're crap at what you're doing. But everyone learned a different way, obviously, and
And you learn from your students, right?
Of course you do. Of course you do. And that's why I love it, because I learned, since being a teacher, I've learned so much. Hopefully I've taught them a lot of things. And I kind of bring that into kind of adult life as well, where with like friends and family who have thought of, like probably with yourself as well, where they've had ideas to do something, like whether it's a podcast or a vlog or web start a business, but they keep putting it off and thinking, like I said earlier about what can you do in 5 minutes? Like, what can you do in a day, a week, a month? You could do so damn much in that space of time. And when I see in like a few months, you could have done like, you could have started the business, like you said, like Company's House, to doing the website, to even baking a loaf of bread, like you said. And it's so strange that I try to do as much as I can in the day, basically. Obviously, I relax when I can too, if I'm exhausted, but we can do so much in a day. And when people say I'm bored, I've got nothing to do at home all day, I think you can do something. There's so much you can do at home. Trust me.
Especially nowadays. I mean, it was quite funny. It made me laugh when people talked about being bored. Because I was like, because I wasn't bored during lockdown because I was very busy. And that's insanely fortunate, insanely privileged. And I certainly not expected either. So I was just head down, 12-hour days, cracking out much as physically possible, and taking on more than I could, for the very fact that I didn't know what was going to come next. So I was making hay while the sun shined. Sorry, I'm sitting on the floor.
It's okay, it's fine.
And I thought, how can you be bored now? Like, you've got Netflix, and Amazon Prime, and YouTube, and you've got YouTube tutorials, and then you've got online courses, and you've got free online courses. Don't you?
That's what I mean.
FutureLearn's free, and then you've got music, and you've got, my dad used to make this joke. He's like, I don't need an iPod. I've got 3 million songs in my head, and I can just hum. There are so many things. You don't even need technology to entertain yourself.
That's what I mean. It's so true. We have so much access. Like I said, we've got so much access to so many things. How the hell could we be bored at home? I've got nothing to do, man. Like, you're such an idiot.
You've got plenty to do.
You've got plenty to do. Tidy your room.
Do something, but be productive. Like, have something to make you feel like at the end of the day, yes, if I didn't do anything, and this goes particularly for times with all of us when we can't even feel like getting out of bed is a possibility. They are those times that can happen to us all. And I'm going through an awful lot of transition myself with the company and personally, and there are times when I have to go, it's just today. I'm not going to think about this week. I'm not going to think about what I could do in this month. At times when you're feeling resilient and effective, you can. But the times when you can't, it's not even about the day. It's about, okay, in 5 minutes, I'm just going to do this. And then when that 5 minutes is over, it's going to be another 5 minutes that's going to be good and it's going to be fine. And I can do this. And when you get overwhelmed, things are so much our perspective on achievable or possible, and not scary and not overwhelming, is so out of kilter. You have to break that down. And there have been times for me, full disclosure, in the last 6 weeks where I've had to go every 5 minutes, and then I've moved to, okay, in this next hour. And there's another technique you can use where if the movement into the next, that transition, very micro, the movement into the transition of, okay, well, what happens when I've finished lunch? I'm feeling worried. What next? Big black void of afternoon. You start sitting yourself psychologically in that afternoon. You just sit there while you're reaching the end of this portion of the chapter, your lunch or whatever that is. And you just sit and you think, I'm going to illustrate in my mind. I'm going to visualize. What am I going to do? Who am I going to see? What am I going to smell, taste, hear? What things am I going to do that are going to feel safe and okay? And then I'm going to move into it. And I think I'm saying this honestly, because I think there are a lot of people at the moment who are struggling just to get through the day.
Yeah.
And want things for themselves and know there are bigger, better things for themselves, but feel trapped, feel stifled, feel frozen, feel overwhelmed. And the task at hand to get there, wherever there looks like, feels so mammoth, motivation sinks. And we get rabbit in headlights, or we just get our head down and keep moving, but we don't actually make any movement forward. So I would say, yeah, that's been a massive one for me recently.
Yeah. And did that take you, I couldn't agree more with what you said, actually, by the way. Did that take you a while to get to that point where you can like kind of discipline yourself to do these things, or was it quite a sort of easy transition into those moments?
I would say, I mean, I'm 34, and you don't go through life unscathed.
Mm-hmm.
You pick up scars and scabs and, you know, twinges along the way, and some of them take longer to heal, and some of them just, you know, when you feel the cold, get a bit achy. So I would say my experience of going through varying levels of types of struggle have taught me each time how to cope. And I'm mentioning my family a lot at the moment. My granddad, my late granddad, used to say, "Through the fire tempers the steel," and I'm sure it wasn't his coining, but it's true. Sometimes the only way to know you're resilient and capable, and also to know how to be resilient and capable, is that you actually have to go through the fire, and that's how you can temper your steel. And I don't think I'm any more unique than the next person to have gone through hardship, and to whatever degree. It's not a sort of hardship competition either. You know, we all have our own journeys and stories, but I would say that really it's those moments, and whether you call them mistakes, failures, fuck ups, excuse my French, you know, or otherwise, struggle, they are essential as much as happiness is.
They are, of course they are.
This is how we steel ourselves to be better and ready, and grow in more of the capacity and the potential that we can be.
It's brilliant. I couldn't agree more. And talk about that kind of struggle as well. Earlier you mentioned about dyslexia, that he had it as well. Did that kind of I'm distracted myself, so I find a lot of things very difficult to do, really difficult. That's why I struggled through school, and I kind of in a way started the orchestras. What was just one of the many reasons why I started the orchestra and the podcast, is to help obviously inspire people and to show that things can be done. Like you said, like we all have struggles. We're not different from anyone else who has gone through the struggles, but we've all got our own way of doing things. And did you find having dyslexia that really kind of affected your way of doing things, or was it just kind of another bump in the road for you, and you're able to get over it really quite quickly?
I don't know. You see, the thing is, I went through schooling, and teachers are really well trained to pick up on these things now. My sister's a primary school teacher, and so I know from her how well trained they are to notice certain things early on in developmental stages. And it was picked up with me a number of times and suggested to my parents for me to go and get assessment. And rightly or wrongly, it doesn't really matter now. My mum actually decided not to. She was concerned that the labelling and the structure in which I would get some support would actually damage my confidence more. Now, whether it did or didn't, I don't know. I didn't really like school anyway, so I don't think it would have mattered either way. But I certainly have friends who were assessed and who were diagnosed with varying levels of learning challenges. And the one thing I noticed at school as their friends was that they call themselves stupid. Just because they didn't immediately, know to put a B or a D, I had to think that the right way around, which is what I was doing, or a P and a Q, and certain vowels going in the wrong order, and just needing sometimes to blink a bit before you focus to read. And I also have high functioning autism in my family. And so I'm interested when I watch, various members of my family or my friends who have been diagnosed formally. ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, high functioning autism, those kinds of qualities in them that mean that certain things within our understanding of how the world works is harder for them, and certain things actually is like, maybe we should learn a bit.
Yeah.
Maybe we should learn to slow down a bit. Maybe we need to understand that spelling doesn't equal intelligence, for God's sake. It's absolutely crap, by the way. You know, maybe grammar is this arbitrary thing that actually was constructed by a bishop in the 1800s, so we could differentiate between the peasantry and the rich folk, which is also true. So it's interesting for me that I think the blocker didn't necessarily come from being diagnosed. My blocker now as an adult is that actually I would like some answers, to have an expert be able to say to me, yeah, this is probably why you feel like this, or why you experience that. Problem is now, as an adult, it's really expensive to get an assessment. And so I've looked at it a couple of times now and gone, no, spend some money elsewhere. Maybe I'll do self-diagnosis. Oh, that's healthy. So I've had enough people who are professional enough to say, I would say, Louise, yeah, you're probably there. But it's not my right, and it's not my story to talk about it from a definite diagnosed perspective. And that would be unfair, because, yeah, I didn't go through that.
Everything you've done in your life, I'm incredibly proud of. You've done such amazing things in your life. So I'm really inspired by you, and keep up the amazing work. But
thank you.
Same okay. Back. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. But talk about expensive though. Like, I've always been kind of, and I'm doing a podcast obviously, but one of the things that I've always been kind of wary of was my speech. And I know that I talk really, really quickly. I know doing a podcast is not the best thing to do when you've got a fast speech, but I looked at getting speech therapy actually recently, and my God, is it expensive. Oh my days.
Yeah. I think there's certain elements of adult learning and development that are definitely pricey. My really good friend, and I don't think she'd mind me saying this, she went to drama school, and we met at college doing performing arts, because once upon a time I wanted to be in the theatre, and we met there. We are basically sisters. And she had a lisp, and it wasn't the most pronounced, but it was enough to be noticed. She was conscious that she was going into a field where the body, the breath, the voice, and her voice was, you know, there were elements that weren't considered fully correct in her line of work. She went to a place called City Lit and did an adult learning course there for a fairly reasonable price, I seem to remember, on elocution to help with her lisp. And I think when you do things like that, and you kind of, you're paying attention to the way you speak. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because really, I studied linguistics at university. And there is a favourite phrase of mine, anyone who knows me will probably roll their eyes, of mutual intelligibility. If you're saying something and I understand it contextually, language, you know, the noise coming out of your face is reaching my face somehow.
My face.
And I'm getting what you're saying. We have mutual intelligibility. What happens in between there is whether culturally or societally or contextually, and also even things like, you know, the kind of words you use that are correct or incorrect, or the noises you make that are correct or incorrect. All of those are sort of separate. They attach to the kind of world we've constructed, but actually fundamentally you're saying something, I'm hearing it, I think I'm getting what you're saying, and move. So I would say, so provided you have mutual intelligibility, and yet sometimes that means take a breath, speak a bit slower, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, read into some of it. It's really interesting, especially with public speaking techniques and the kind of things that actors will use as part of their tools.
Mm-hmm.
All really important stuff, always really useful to know.
Yes.
But don't attach yourself too much to the shoulds and shouldn'ts, because the thing that's nice about linguistics as opposed to the kind of theatre side is that anything goes. It's just fascinating, and the question is why do you choose those words? Why do you speak in that way? And cool.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. I'm going to start using that now, mutual intelligibility. I'm going to start using that now.
It's a mouthful, though. That's the only
mutual intelligibility. I'm going to start. Got it.
Don't say it after a few beers, because you know, I got very up on my soapbox a couple of times when people are saying you shouldn't use that word, or you know, double negative, and I'll be like, mutual intelligibility. I mean, ask me tomorrow.
Ask you tomorrow when I'm hungover.
I'll write it down for you.
I'll text it to you. That's brilliant. But talk about that, because I was like, I got going back, like, sort of like learning to speak slower and kind of using different words and so forth. I remember when I had to do that when I did my TED talk, actually. And for someone that talks about 1 million miles an hour like I do, to give a TED talk, thinking, oh, Jesus Christ, like it's still to this day one of my best moments of my life, even though I was badly ill that day. But to give a talk, not just a normal talk, but a TED talk, and thinking, geez, wow, me, give me a TED talk. I'm not the dumbest guy here, but it was unbelievable.
That way. The imposter syndrome is a key ring we all carry, it seems.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to matter who you are, what you're speaking about, or what your story is. We all seem to feel like we're in a room full of people who are going to catch us out, but you should be you should live your life around people who are always better than you anyway. So actually, as soon as you think that, doesn't matter. that's why
I always say, because I always have to learn from different people, and I always like to be in a room, like you said, but with people who are more intelligent than me or doing better than me, so I can learn from them. And I can't remember who said the quote where, if you're the smartest one in the room, change rooms or something like that. And I think because it's true, it keeps you on your toes, doesn't it? It makes you want to learn even more and do more and achieve more. And I've got friends who are doing so well in life, and including you, obviously. And I look up to these people because they're using their time to do better for themselves. They're learning more. They're doing well. And I feel like life's too short not to at least try doing what you want. Because like I was saying earlier about people who always have these amazing ideas, but they don't act on them. And by the time they actually go around to doing it, either someone else has done it, or it's too late, or whatever the reason might be. And that was, like you said earlier, about just going, like, learning, like being ready before you start, or starting before you're ready. Yeah, that's the reason why I started the podcast as well, because we've got so many stories to share, so many amazing people to talk to, and I knew that if I didn't start that moment, I would have left it for ages. And now we're start of August now, and this is the 29th episode now, and I'm thinking,
this is the 29th episode.
Yeah.
I like the number 29. I was born on the 9th of May.
So. Oh, look at that perfect timing then. That's what I mean. But it's so addictive though, because I know I've seen this a couple of times before. That's part of my distraction. I repeat a lot of things, so forgive me. But it's just, I've always loved stories, and I've always loved listening to people to share those stories and learn from people. And it's just a very, very, what's what I'm looking for now. I'll get obsessed with it. It's just an amazing thing to do. And in a way, it's kind of
nourishing.
Not very nourishing, yeah. And you're, in a way, I might sound quite weird, but it's in a way it's really therapeutic as well, because you're
not weird at all.
It's not. Yeah, thank you for understanding it.
Yeah, it's not weird at all. It's absolutely therapeutic, and don't be frightened to use terms like that, because things to be therapeutic are essential. You know, and I'm a big fan of therapy anyway. But,
me too. Yeah.
You know, it's to do things that are going to be good for our soul, good for our mental health, allow us to reconnect more authentically to other people and be able to hear, and attribute others to ourselves to strengthen our identity, that's just powerful, right?
It's really powerful, yeah, because I think a lot of people are, I know a lot of things are coming out now where they're allowed to kind of share their thoughts and get it off their chest. And I feel like with podcasting, it's a brilliant way, in a way, that it's like therapy, because we're sharing moments that we've overcome that people might not know about us. And people think that, I think I might have mentioned this before in different episodes, where people have this kind of idea that you go on stage just to perform and you're sort of perfect straight away and you walk off and that's what you do. Go on stage, perform, and then leave. But they don't see or know the behind the scenes moments that go on behind the thing. They don't know exactly the amount of BS we got to go through to get to that moment, like the years of hardship or rejection or the discipline or whatever it is. People think we just turn up, perform, leave. It's not that easy.
I think it's interesting when we were talking about something along that lines earlier. And I think, people that we look up to and things like that. And I think there's a lot of story sharing around vulnerability and around, the kind of maybe not so perfect image of, people at the finish line. And people tell those stories and they're really powerful. But I've started to realize that even when we're showing our weaknesses, we're doing it in a very refined manner. And the ugly is actually really important to see. And I think I call it the ugly only because we don't want to look at it, do we? We don't really, it's a bit, you're airing your dirty laundry. Maybe it's a British thing, I don't know. A bit stiff upper lip and a bit kind of, but I don't know. I just think I'm looking forward, and I'm starting to read the books that are a lot more in that way, of people who are not there yet, to be honest, or even if they are there yet in some ways, they're still not there yet in others. And because I just got to a point where I think Instagram and so many places start to become very guru heavy. Yes. I mean, it was just a bit like everyone's got like a 10 steps to this and 3, 2, 1, shoot out bed. And, here's my one simple, way to solve all your problems. And, because apparently we're just a homogenous lump of human, that all of our problems are the exact same and our solutions are therefore the same too. And I get that we have similarity and some things will work and not work and etc., but it got a bit guru heavy, and a little bit kind of like the self-help started to become quite a shallow puddle of, here I am, but I used to be down like you, and then I did this really simple thing and now I'm like a millionaire. Tony Robbins of, and not to say that some of his messages aren't worth listening to, but at the same time, I think there's something dangerous in telling that story as much as it is saying I'm rich, famous, happy, healthy, got 2.5 kids and a Labrador. Here I am, I'm great. There's also something really dangerous about saying I'm there, but I also used to be where you are today, and this simple thing has led me there. Because it's not, I want to see when you're eating Ben and Jerry's out of a tub with a spoon, hating yourself, and, and actually tell me then how you're feeling.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. Because the dog's back, by the way.
Sorry, I think my dog's like,
love it.
She's not been able to go for a walk today.
But it's so true what you said, though, that I think that's kind of one negative of social media, isn't it? Where they kind of portray this kind of, in a way, perfect life, where they think, like, look at my perfect body, look at my perfect life, look at all this, thinking, like you said, show us when you're eating your Ben and Jerry's at midnight, crying your eyes out, then tell us about your perfect life. It's not all true. Yeah. And that's why
we do that with our decision making. We have a lot of decision making based on what we see as potential that we think is real, and it's not. That's the potential. Press pause on now. Look at reality now.
Yeah.
Is it that? If it's not, Never whining.
Okay. So I'll wrap it up there, and don't worry. But before we actually work together, because I wanted to, one thing I love doing is kind of asking sort of the best lessons you've learned along the way, and what you would kind of love to teach other people if they want to start their own business, or just life lessons in general. What been some of the best things you've learned along the way?
Ooh. Okay, so after saying all of this crap about
easy
no,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I should stop it there. I cut the podcast off now.
Fail. Make a mess. No, own your crappy stories of failure. I hate that word anyway, because there actually isn't such thing. There's no such thing as success either. It's all a fake. It's all just living our damn lives as best we can and go and do it. I guess what my advice would be, if you're working from home and you're starting a job, you're going to spend a lot of time on your own, get a dog. She gets you out, make you think outside of yourself, and sometimes the encouragement to stop navel gazing is very useful. I would say start before you're ready is a massive one.
That's the best one,
for the world to be secure and the world to be stable to do something. It's not going to be, it's never going to be, and that's not life anyway. And you've got enough to get going, even if it gets you the first 5k.
I love that. Absolutely love that.
Fill up, go again. That's called a journey, right?
Of course it is. Of course it is.
And then I guess comparison is a bitch. Do your best not to do it. But know that that's what we do anyway. So when you do it, don't beat yourself up about doing it as well. Because my God, how many times do you need to beat yourself up in a day? And the answers really are your own. You can go and poll, and you can go and get advice, and you can seek advice from your mentor, and you can look outside yourself, and you can get as much advice and perspective and ideas as you can. That's great, but fundamentally these answers need to be from you. And the more practiced you are at listening to your own voice, the better. And that's coming from somebody who is very much on that journey. Stop whining, I'm trying to be profound.
I'll stop it right there, and don't worry. But honestly, Louise, that was such a good podcast. Thank you. Look at the dog. God, let me see. Oh, look at the dog. Oh, I love her so much. Perfect way to end it. Perfect way. That is. But honestly, Louise, thank you so much for being part of my podcast today. Honestly, I loved it. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And how can people find you and your businesses?
Well, you can find me on Instagram, as in just me. I'm Louise and Lizzie. Louise and Lizzie on Instagram. The YP Collective is Instagram at the moment, and then there will be a bit of a transition when we move over to the new brand. But I'll make that super clear.
Amazing.
We'll maybe keep the YP Collective for a bit and signpost. So don't worry about that. TheYPCollective.com. Again, but come say hi. Come find me on LinkedIn. I love a chat. And if you want a deep and meaningful, let's go there, man.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it. And that's the end of our episode. Amazing. Thank you so much, Louise. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.